All right, so again, Shalom and Salam to Yohannis with Amanuel, RastafariRenaissance.com here, and just in a little continuation about what we were speaking about from the Nine Untils video, just referencing Amanuel Haile Selassie's, of course, UN speech, just a little bit in the time of the Italian fascist regime's invasion, and of course. The King of Kings making a great plea to the United Nations, leaning on their own topic and their own theme that was upheld as collective security, being the reason for the whole formation of the quote unquote League of Nations or the United Nations as ones would know it today. So collective security, of course, was the great theme, and this was the entire premise of why the formation of the entire organization and the organization of all the nations was, the whole idea. So just bringing that to the forefront, we were, of course, referencing a lot of things that we had spoken about with my brother and, just one of the comrades, Tobia Tafarai or Teferia. My brother was, just kind of preview on a lot of things, just from some years ago. I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago. And the brother had really started looking into a lot of the alternative currencies and things of that nature. It really spoke a lot of volumes, and I wanted to encourage my brother, and I still encourage my brother. And for ones that haven't checked, that brother out on RastafariNetwork.net, you really should, just give that brother, a little support, and not even support, just look into it, just for yourselves, because a lot of things are still ready to come down the pipeline, really. Quote unquote, so to speak, in this moment, especially in this time, even with, our new president elect, so to speak. So it's a lot that really still is behind the scenes, and a lot of the unseen hand movements and back channeling, and negotiations are going on. And many of them, really will go, under the radar for ones who really aren't paying a lot of attention to a lot of the geopolitical and just economic and just in the entire infrastructure of not only this nation but many nations abroad as well. So it's a lot to really pay attention to. It's a lot of policy involved. It's a lot of just rhetoric that is going to be out there, and it's really going to send a lot of misdirection to a lot of people who really aren't going to be just diligent enough to continue to look behind these things and really find out what's going on and get out in front of the narrative. So just to point out, one, I guess you can say an article that I really took the time to take a look at was from Investopedia. That's a really good one for ones definitely learning to up their financial education. I myself reference it, quite a bit, along with a lot of other financial and economic news articles or platforms, so to speak, like Market Watch and many others that ones might have an idea of or have taken a look at before. But this one really pointed out a few pinpoints that really caught my eye in this perspective. It came out just a little bit earlier this month, or about the end of last month or so. I have to check the date, of course, for the article and the writer again. But this one has a topic of events that can impact your currency trading strategy. So really looking into a lot of the speculation in the currency market, because that's really where a lot of the trading has gone. It's not so much in the stocks as many people would think, though the stock market, of course, has its relations, of course, to the currency market as well as the commodities market. And these are some terms that, your brother here, Yefdeyah, would, be a little slower to speak on, mainly because I usually don't like to feel like I'm talking over people's heads. I like to really start at a point where ones can really get a good initial starting point and really build on that. So if you haven't really, been in certain conversations with me myself, you would really think that, especially looking at my channel, you would think that I wouldn't have, a little bit of information on these type of issues. But just speaking on, my brother and comrade, of course, with him, Tobia, we spoke on this on numerous occasions, and whenever I usually get a chance to just chop it up with my brother every now and then, we tend to, of course, speak on certain political issues, certain economic and commercial issues as this. And I really, again, I just have to pick up my brother again. And that's RastafariNetwork.net. You be sure to check out my brother there. Again, I mentioned that he was looking into a lot of the alternative currencies, the cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin and other financial systems and things that have come around, just in the recent years. And a lot of the newer, not so popular or in the pop culture financial systems and certain platforms that really haven't gained as much traction as you would say, like a PayPal, or things like that, that really aid a lot of commercial activity, especially on the back end or for ones really in the initial startup position, really trying to just forge a way for themselves, especially, in the initial entrepreneurship, especially when you're not having a lot of financial backing or financial support from other ones who are willing to fund, your ideas or things of that nature that you really, have a passion for, but you can't push forward, or at least you're not finding the avenues in which can smooth out those rough edges, especially when it deals to finance. So, we looked into a lot of these alternatives, so to speak, and not only are we as individuals seemingly looking into these other alternative mediums of exchange, but it seems that many countries are doing the same as well, and this is, of course, on a institutional level. So, just looking into this article again from Investopedia, how the certain events will affect many traders' strategies dealing with the currency, and thinking again to that work and that literary work, Currency Wars, The Making of the Next Global Crisis by James or Jim Rickards. Again, we'll reference that here in the description box for ones to actually get a look at that. I would really, do some catch-up reading if you haven't heard of a James Rickards or Jim Rickards, and I really would like to reference, of course, another economist, another I wouldn't say a political insider, but I have to say that he's definitely versed, in a lot of economical structures and done a lot of research and really made some quite interesting predictions even up until this point and a little bit further for the next couple of years. So Harry Dent Jr., definitely one to look into. Some might even throw in Peter Schiff, and another interesting one. Just to see these type of three minds, and there are many more that really I could mention off the top of my head that I definitely follow and listen to, and seek a little bit of insight on what they might be speculating at the time or what they might be finding to be a good reference point for certain economical structures, and seeing how the whole political scale is playing out. And it's just been really interesting to see the whole seesawing and the back and forth, amongst certain countries, especially when we throw in the larger and more undeveloped countries into play. And even so, watching many of the developed countries move into a certain position, even so with so much going on between certain economic and political factions, making their own negotiations and seeking to, just find a good position. I can't say it even more. Just really, jockeying for position in a world where so much is leaning on a lot of strategic planning, a lot of just forward thinking and, just mental chess, so to speak, just to break it down for certain ones in that faction. But again, just mentioning this article We mentioned that, of course, we have our president-elect, our newly elected president, and this definitely being the first of the 4 points brought out by the events that will affect many traders' strategy looking into the next coming years. And the U.S. election, of course, was point number 1. And mainly because so many currencies from around the world, since we, of course, have left the gold standard, ones might not be privy to that. Be sure to do some more research and look into 1971 with President Richard Nixon. And, this whole, I guess you can say, schematic and things of that nature that really came about to really see how these currencies all came into play. And, just seeing the entire story from front to end just brought about a different understanding myself, and really seeking to gain more understanding of how these I guess you could say whole games, or I wouldn't say games just in that sense of just ignorant play, or so to speak. It's really more so these strategic stomping grounds, and where many of the institutions of certain countries are really finding ways to keep ones in a certain check of not being able to overcome them from a certain aspect. So though one country, for example, one country may have a very strong military presence, another country may be very technologically savvy. Another country may have a certain amount of trade balance, or trade wealth, or very natural resource heavy. So many countries have to find a lot of interesting ways in which to position themselves and juxtapose themselves against many other countries, though you may have certain feelings, I should say, or a certain rhetoric, or certain outlooks or thoughts, or real disagreements and agreements to a certain extent with certain countries. You find yourself negotiating with people that you may not always agree with on a certain point, and you may not even really would do business with them at all, depending had you not been in the certain situation that you are in. But nonetheless, the world as we see it, internationally, not just here in the West, is at a position where negotiation is, critical for certain countries, especially many of the developing countries instead of the developed, and in which they find themselves able to maneuver much easier in a certain world where so much has been shifted, I should say, to a certain geography or geographical location here in the world. But again, just pointing out these 4 points. The U.S. election, the second point being the Fed, or the Federal Reserve's meeting on December 14th, which will be another critical meeting here for the Federal Reserve. The third point will be the EU referendums being called for leading up into the next year for 2017, as well as the fourth point being a possible Deutsche Bank bailout. Now, just looking around and seeing a lot of the information that continues to come to us, and many ones doing their own speculating and seeing how the dominoes might drop, or how things might play out. Deutsche Bank being a very interesting point here, as it has been in the news a lot lately, and even stemming back to the economic disaster of 2008, around the time President Obama took office, or was around the time he was getting ready to take office. There, of course, was a great real estate crash, not only here in the West in the United States, but definitely had its ripple effects in many other countries, even in Europe, so to speak. It really created a great damper amongst many one's economical structures, many one's just the trickle-down effect was enormous, just turning a lot of the infrastructures of many countries, not only here in the West, of course, but internationally, you're just on their head. And it all just stemmed from a lot of greed, just corruption. I know many ones probably have heard that before, but I mean, the rabbit hole really goes so deep that, just to get into one video, it wouldn't be enough. We'd really have to go into a lot of detail, a lot of facts, a lot of research, and we'll really have to bring this out piece by piece just to unpack it. But just seeing that Deutsche Bank here being a fourth point in this particular article here from Investopedia is enough said for one who has been following these things and policy and things of that nature and all the issues, so to speak, from a certain perspective, brings a lot into the picture and the grand scheme of things. So, we'll also leave a description here for the video from Dr. Arthur Lewis, who really, I can say, broke down a lot of the schematic, especially from the International Monetary Fund, as well as the World Bank, and a lot of, the entire global or international instances where many ones, of course, who have moved into certain positions of power, are presenting themselves as large policymakers, and a lot of things just tend to, move at a certain pace where if these ones, of course, who are here in front of us are being presented to us are the holders of the narrative and the rule makers to the entire game, so to speak, quote unquote, kind of leave things in a great limbo to where if you're not really privy and following closely a lot of the themes and the issues and the topics going on, you'll really be lost just coming in. So, and the attention to detail is vital. Just following these themes, especially when it deals with business, commercial activity, and finance, infrastructure, and just the whole get up is a lot to really get into. But just thinking on this, we'll just send this as a first word, and we'll get into a little more detail. And as promised, I will get into this literary work, Currency Wars: The Making of the Next Global Crisis by James Rickards.